Hi, Paul. It's Mike Sarno. Thank you for your video reply. I'm enjoying our discussion, and I guess the thing that struck me the most about your last video is the fact that, well, basically we agree. We've had some disagreements in the text comments, but when you get right down to it, I really think we're just having a difference in terminology. We're using different words. I think we're coming at it from two different angles, but we're converging on the same idea. I would agree with what you said about the Quran being more easily used to incite violence than the New Testament. I guess I would add the context that the New Testament has been used to cite violence. So even as peaceful as the New Testament is on its face, it can still be distorted. And I think you're right when you identify the problem with the Quran being used, being taught to an adolescent, potentially, by a teacher who has a political agenda. I think you're right. I never really said anything like that in my previous videos, but that was always in my mind. That was the picture that I had. And I really think that that's a religious issue. That's not a religious issue. That's a political issue. It's a political or cultural phenomenon that we're experiencing with that. And I think as long as we have any type of belief systems, I think we're always going to have the danger that someone is going to pervert or distort some idea for their own political, cultural, or economic gain. And I think that's what we're experiencing here. I'm not an Islamic scholar, but from what I've managed to read, I think that one of the problems, too, with the Quran is that so much depends on context. So much more so than a lot of other scripture. I mean, you really can't take anything out of context in scripture and expect to get the meaning. But the Quran is especially so. I think the context of each verse within the chapters is very important. A lot of times, if you just take a verse out of context, it can mean something completely opposite because there's a whole bunch of qualifiers that are in previous or following verses. I think we need to be mindful of the context of the Quran as it was introduced historically 1,400 years ago. We need to realize that that a lot of the passages, a lot of the verses, are talking about the extremes that are allowed. Not necessarily recommendations, but the absolute maximum beyond which you cannot go with your behavior. And I think that's really important, because a lot of times people read these passages and cite them and say, well, the Quran is recommending this. And in most cases, that's not what's happening. The Quran is saying, look, this is the absolute extreme. If you have to, if you're pushed, back against the wall type of thing, here's the maximum that you're allowed to do. And I think Surah 47 was one of those cases that's been cited and used as a recommendation when really it's a maximum, it's an extreme. So I've really enjoyed our discussion so far. If you'd like to reply, that would be great. And thanks. Take care.